In this video, we're going to be talking more in depth about variables. So you need to get a clear understanding of exactly what variables is, because the life of a programmer is actually declaring variables all day long. So what are variables? A variable is a location in the memory that has been given a name by the programmer. So and then assign a value to it. For example, if you declare an int variable room temperature, um, what you're doing is asking for the program to actually reserve you a space in the memory where you can hold the integer value, and then you can call the variable by its name whenever you need it. So for example, if you declare a variable, any variable types at all, what you're doing is you're carving out a space in the memory. Say you need a 4 byte 32-bit space in the memory, or 64-bit, and you want the variable to hold a certain value of certain range, then you're giving that area of the memory a name. The reason why we give it a name is so that it can be easy for us to get the value in that address, because it's also possible to get access to the memory by actually referencing the address of the area of the memory, but it's easier to use a name than an address. One once a variable is declared, you cannot change its data type. So you declare it as a float and it will remain as float. This is why we call Objective-C variables as strongly typed variables, because unlike in language like JavaScript, where you can change the type of data that can be held in a variable, these are called loosely typed variables. You can't do this in Objective-C. So what that means is, for example, if you declare an integer and call it room temperature, that area of the memory will remain as a special place to hold an integer. You cannot change the data type of that area of the memory anymore. Once, the only thing you can do is to get rid of the variable, but you cannot actually change it to hold another data type. Once you declare it as float, it remains as float. Once you declare it as an integer, it remains an integer. Even though you cannot change the variable data type once it is assigned, you can change the value, and this is why they are called variables, because their values can vary. So any part of the memory that has been reserved for a particular data type, you can change the value that you put in there. For example, if you declare a variable called radius, you can always give radius any value that you want, as long as within the range that you can store in it. So you can say radius is equal to 25, and then later on you can change and say radius is 50. But there is a phenomenon known as typecasting, which we're going to be using in a future video. Typecasting allows you to pretend to change the data type of a variable, and we'll be talking more about this in the future video. Because with typecasting, you're actually not changing the value in the you're not changing the value in the memory, but once you get the value out from the memory, you can change it to another type. So I will actually be talking about this in the future video, so don't worry about it. Int number of students. So this is how you declare a variable. So right now, when you do this, when you say int number of students, what you're doing is you're giving a special area of the memory a name, and you declare it as an integer. This is how you declare a variable. In the memory, a 32-bit space will be reserved to store the value of variable named number of students. To assign a value to the variable, you need to use the assignment operator. The equal sign that we use in maths is what we call an assignment operator, because this doesn't denote an equality in programming. And this is something that you have to pay attention to, because you are going to make a lot of mistake for using the equal sign to mean equal in programming. Because if you do this in Objective-C and use 1, because normally we use 2 in to mean equality, we'll talk more about this in the future. So this is an assignment operator, because what you're doing is you're assigning a value of 10 to number of students. So you're using the assignment operator to assign a number of a value of 10 to this variable. And like I always say, don't forget the semicolon at the end of it. Now the value of the variable is 10, and this is stored in the memory in the space reserved for the variable. We can change the value of the variable, so now we can say number of students equals to 24. And if you attempt to change the data type of the variable, because we've already declared as an integer, if you change it to double here, if you change it to double, you will get a compiler error. And let's actually try that. This is the program that we ran in the past. So as you can see, if I click on run, you see that it's working perfectly. So if I change here, if I say float radius, and then I come here and I say int radius, we're going to get a compiler error because 27. We're going to get a compiler error, and the reason is because it said the definition of radius with a different type, which is not allowed. So this is why you can't do that. So once you declare a variable, it remains that data type until the end of your program. So I hope this shed more light on variables, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.